What's going on, trainers? Dom from the Otaku Room, guys, and we're talking about episode 117 today of Pokemon Horizons. This episode put a big emphasis on Alt or Uruto and Lacey and their training, and we had a really cool preview for next week as well as we move into episode 118, where it looks like we got hints of maybe Liko Hatenna finally evolving into a Hatterene. So definitely catch me next week as we look through the Ditto Qs, which I think is a really cool call out for Scarlet and Violet. We'll talk more next week, as well as a potential evolution. At least I'm crossing my fingers for it. Now, with this week's episode, it was all about Alt and him trying to be a better trainer, get closer to his Pokemon, and trying to create that relationship with his Pokemon. To try and frankly catch up to Roy, but also kind of surpass his own limits a little bit. And Lacey, which is one of my favorite characters in Pokemon, also huge shout out. I probably won't talk about it too much here, but Carmine was a big proponent this episode too. I love how she was playing with the 𝐒𝐿𝐴 and the 𝐒𝐿𝐴 coins and Dot. She just chef's kiss. Carmine's one of the best. But with Lacey, she's like the quiz girl, the question girl. And if you played through Scarlet and Violet, you know that was a thing when you went to the DLC in Blueberry Academy. And I love how they incorporated it here with, finding how Pikachu's electricity is charged in their cheeks, very similar to the game, among other questions and quizzes that she was able to kind of test Alt with. So not only was he increasing his battle knowledge and his battle ability as he was kind of battling with her, and the Exeggutor, and with Dragonite, he also increased his Pokemon knowledge as well too. Lastly, he was able to fight with Dragonite, get closer to it. So now there's potential here to where Dragonite can now end up being a consistent Pokemon for Alt, as opposed to what it has been, which is just a Pokemon that kind of comes out as needed when it kind of feels Alt's passion. And I wanted to pause right there and talk about one thing that I haven't before, I don't think, with Pokemon, is the Pokemon that refuse to come out of their Pokeball, very much a la like a Pikachu who refused to go back into their Pokeball, or other Pokemon, because it's not the first time that a Pokemon has, decided to come out when they feel like it. Rayquaza did the same thing with Roy, and the other 6 Pokemon of Lucius, kind of had that same attitude kind of thing. But one of the things I never really talked about before is it kind of goes against everything that we know about Pokemon and the way Pokeballs work and the way that you catch and train and all this stuff in Pokemon. And very much the games, the Pokemon games have really set up the ground rules and groundwork on how the world is constructed. And when it comes to Pokemon, yes, there are levels to where they will and won't listen to you, or you must achieve a certain thing. They very much call it out in the video games, and they call it out in the anime of like, oh, well, you haven't achieved this rank, you haven't achieved this level yet, so your Pokemon are less likely to listen to you. That has been well established in the Pokemon anime for decades now, as well as in the game. So that is something that we don't really fight against. But the Pokemon refusing to come out of their ball, or you tossing a ball and the Pokemon not coming out, or the Pokemon being released or coming out of their ball whenever they feel like, is something that really goes against everything we know about Pokemon. And I don't want to harp on it too long, but in this episode specifically, right, Dragonite decides to come out because it feels their trainer. But then that indicates that Pokemon are allowed to autonomously come out whenever they really want to. So like if they feel that they need to, they'll be able to pop out of their ball whenever. And again, if you've played the games, that kind of goes against everything that the games have established and the way that the world has established of like, no, they're pretty much locked in their balls unless like the button is pushed for some reason, then that will trigger the ability for them to be able to pop out of their ball. Similar to how like they're sent to the PC and PC boxes and stuff are managed. They're virtually in like a pokey prison, essentially. So I was just thinking about that as I was watching the Dragonite stuff. It's like, man, that really fights against everything that has been established with the game and the world and stuff, of the way that the Pokemon get in their balls and the way it works. And basically kind of like time's kind of frozen in their balls, which is essentially why, you know, Pokemon have the ability to shrink down. It's not anything that the technology of the ball does, but kind of like time kind of stops for them a little bit within their balls. Like they're not living like this life in their Pokeball. Time just kind of freezes, which is why crazy Pokemon villains like 𝐒𝐻𝐴𝐵𝐵 in the Sun and Moon era were very passionate about collecting a lot of Pokemon and time stopping, and they're really focused on time because of the way that that mechanism works. Anyway, just want to throw that out there of just I don't like the fact that Dragonite comes out whenever and Dragonite feels something with Alt. It's just a little silly, and it's one of the kind of things that I just don't like, just because it goes against what it's established. Otherwise, the rest of the episode though was pretty good. I was pretty entertained. The end of the episode ends with, you know, Alt really discovering something and you know, battling with Dragonite. I also really like too. One of the other things that I wanted to talk about when Alt was fighting against Lacey this episode. We got to see on how OP and goated terrestrialization is. I know a lot of people, even with the new games and stuff, and you know, I think Mega Evolutions are really like always touted as like the best gimmick in Pokemon. But really, this episode with the Excadrill becoming a fairy type, it really shows you how OP terrestrialization is, because any Pokemon through terrestrialization can be any type, right? Like your Charizard can be Ghost, can be Fairy, can be Dragon, can be Steel, can be Water. Like through terrestrialization. So it shows you that terrestrialization is actually the best gimmick and method in the games. It's just not as flashy as Mega Evolution, kind of a Pokemon evolving, or Gigantamaxing, you know, a Pokemon becoming ginormous. It's not as cool as that, you know, because their typings will change with those gimmicks. But it's something that to where like the trainer can really choose how they want to min-max their Pokemon, and they can change their typing through terrestrialization as well, which I just think is really cool. All right, I'll leave you guys in those thoughts there. I'll see you guys next week for episode 118. Peace.